Hey, warrior. Yes, you. I need you to listen closely because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see silence. Most people think silence makes you weak, invisible, or irrelevant. They believe you need to be the loudest voice in the room to command respect. They think constant talking equals strength and influence. But they're dead wrong. What if I told you that silence isn't weakness at all? What if the most powerful weapon in your arsenal isn't your words, but your ability to withhold them? What if true psychological dominance comes not from speaking, but from knowing exactly when not to speak? The ancient Stoics understood something that modern society has completely forgotten. Silence is psychological warfare of the highest order. Right now, while everyone else is desperately trying to fill every moment with noise, you're going to learn how to weaponize the one thing they fear most. Complete, intentional, strategic silence. This isn't about being shy or antisocial. This is about understanding that in a world addicted to constant chatter, the person who masters silence controls the entire conversation. Marcus Aurelius once said that the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. But what he didn't say explicitly is this: while your enemies exhaust themselves with endless words, you gather strength in the spaces between. You observe. You calculate. You strike with precision when others flail with desperation. I'm about to share with you 7 devastating ways that silence becomes your most lethal psychological weapon. These aren't feel-good theories or motivational fluff. These are battle-tested strategies that have been used by emperors, generals, and the most influential people throughout history. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the strongest people in any room are often the quietest ones. Drop this affirmation in the comments if you're ready to discover your hidden power. My silence is my strength. Like this video if you're tired of being overlooked. Share it with someone who needs to understand this truth. And subscribe because we're building an army of people who know that real power whispers while weakness shouts. Let's begin. Number 1, silence forces others to reveal themselves. When you remain quiet in conversation, something fascinating happens. Other people become uncomfortable with the void and start filling it with their thoughts, secrets, and true intentions. They reveal far more than they ever intended to share. This is human psychology at its most basic level. People cannot tolerate extended silence in social situations. Think about the last time someone asked you a difficult question and you didn't immediately respond. What happened? They probably started talking again, explaining themselves, backtracking, or giving you more information than you asked for. That moment of silence created pressure, and they cracked under it. This is your first weapon. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this principle deeply. He taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. But there's a deeper lesson here. When you listen more and speak less, people assume you're wise. They project intelligence onto your silence. They fill your quiet moments with their own assumptions about your thoughts. And those assumptions are usually far more impressive than anything you might have actually said. In negotiations, interrogations, and even casual conversations, the person who speaks first after an uncomfortable pause usually loses. They reveal their desperation. They show their hand. They give away their power. Meanwhile, you sit in calm observation, gathering intelligence while they surrender it freely. Master this technique by practicing the 3-second rule. When someone finishes speaking, count to 3 before you respond. Watch how often they start talking again, revealing information they never intended to share. You'll be amazed at what people tell you when you simply give them space to talk themselves into corners. Number 2. Silence creates an aura of mystery and authority. There's something deeply magnetic about a person who doesn't feel the need to explain themselves constantly. When you speak less, every word carries more weight. When you're selective with your communication, people pay attention. When you finally do speak, you become the person others want to understand and figure out. Authority figures throughout history have understood this principle. They don't chase conversations. They don't overshare personal details. They don't feel compelled to fill every moment with commentary. Instead, they cultivate an air of mystery that makes others gravitate toward them, trying to earn their attention and approval. Consider the most respected leaders you know. Do they dominate conversations with endless chatter? Or do they speak with purpose and restraint? The answer is always the latter. They understand that mystery creates intrigue, and intrigue creates influence. When people can't fully read you, they become fascinated by you. This doesn't mean you become cold or disconnected. It means you become intentional with your words and comfortable with quiet moments. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself through constant talking. You let your presence speak louder than your voice. Practice this by becoming the person who asks more questions than they answer. Show genuine interest in others while revealing less about yourself. Watch how quickly you become the most interesting person in the room simply by making others feel heard while maintaining your own enigmatic presence. Number 3, silence demonstrates unshakable inner confidence. Insecure people cannot tolerate silence. They fill every pause with nervous laughter, unnecessary explanations, or meaningless small talk. They're terrified that silence might be interpreted as stupidity or social awkwardness. But confident people understand that silence often communicates more than words ever could. When you're comfortable with silence, you're demonstrating that you don't need external validation. You're not desperately seeking approval through constant engagement. You're not afraid of being judged for having nothing to say because you know your worth isn't determined by your ability to entertain others with endless conversation. The Stoics called this inner tranquility. It's the deep peace that comes from knowing who you are and not needing others to confirm it. When this state silence you reach becomes natural rather than forced. You speak when you have something valuable to contribute, not because you feel obligated to make noise. This kind of confidence is magnetic because it's rare. Most people are so hungry for attention and approval that they exhaust everyone around them with their need to be heard. When you show up without that desperate energy, when you're genuinely comfortable in your own skin, regardless of whether you're speaking or not, people notice. They're drawn to your calm presence because it's so different from the anxious energy most people project. Number 4, silence allows you to control the pace and direction of interactions. When you master strategic silence, you become the conductor of every conversation. You decide when topics change, when discussions deepen, and when interactions end. This happens because silence creates natural pause points that give you the opportunity to redirect or refocus the conversation in whatever direction serves you best. Most people are reactive in conversations. They respond to whatever the other person says without thinking strategically about where they want the interaction to go. But when you use silence as a tool, you become proactive. You create space to think, to assess, and to choose your next move carefully. This is particularly powerful in conflict situations. When someone is trying to provoke you or draw you into an argument, your silence can be devastating. They're expecting a reaction, preparing for a fight, ready to escalate. Instead, you give them nothing. You don't take the bait. You let their anger and frustration bounce off your calm presence like waves against a stone cliff. Your silence forces them to confront their own behavior without the satisfaction of getting a reaction from you. Often this leads them to either escalate to a point where they look ridiculous, or to back down and reconsider their approach. Either way, you win without saying a word. The power here is that you're not being passive or weak. You're being strategically patient. You're choosing your battles and refusing to be pulled into conflicts that don't serve your interests. This is the essence of psychological warfare through silence. Number 5, silence makes your eventual words carry devastating impact. When you establish yourself as someone who speaks rarely but purposefully, every word you do choose to share lands with the force of a hammer blow. People lean in when you speak because they know you don't waste breath on meaningless chatter. They understand that if you're breaking your silence, what you're about to say must be important. This is the principle of scarcity in action. When something is rare, it becomes valuable. When your words are scarce, they become precious. The person who talks constantly dilutes the power of their communication. Every sentence carries less weight because there are so many of them. But when you speak infrequently and with precision, each statement becomes an event. Think about the difference between a machine gun and a sniper rifle. The machine gun sprays bullets everywhere, hoping something hits the target. The sniper rifle fires once with perfect aim and eliminates the target completely. Most people communicate like machine guns. You're going to learn to communicate like a sniper. This doesn't mean you become rude or antisocial. It means you become selective. You choose quality over quantity. You wait for the perfect moment to make your point, and when you do, it's impossible to ignore. Your words cut through the noise of endless chatter like a blade through silk. The ancient Stoics understood that speech is silver, but silence is golden. Not because silence is passive, but because it makes your eventual words pure gold. When you finally speak, people remember what you said. They quote you. They think about your words long after the conversation ends. Number 6, silence protects you from revealing weaknesses and mistakes. Every word you speak is potential ammunition for your enemies. Every opinion you share can be twisted, taken out of context, or used against you later. Every emotion you express in the heat of the moment can become a weapon in someone else's hands. But silence reveals nothing that can be weaponized. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the importance of controlling not just your actions but your words. He understood that a careless statement could undo years of careful reputation building. He knew that in the political arena, enemies were always listening, always waiting for a moment of weakness they could exploit. This principle applies just as much in your daily life. In the workplace, in relationships, in social situations, people are constantly gathering information about you. They're looking for your buttons to push, your insecurities to exploit, your weaknesses to target. When you speak constantly, you're giving them a detailed map of your vulnerabilities. Silence is your armor. It protects your thoughts, your plans, your emotions, and your true intentions from those who would use them against you. It keeps your enemies guessing while you move forward with your goals undisturbed. You become like a fortress with no visible entry points. This doesn't mean you live in paranoia or distrust everyone around you. It means you understand that information is power, and you're strategic about what information you share with whom. You reveal yourself to those who have earned your trust while maintaining protective silence with those who haven't. Number 7. Silence forces others to work for your attention and approval. In a world where everyone is desperately competing for attention, the person who doesn't chase it becomes incredibly attractive. When you're not constantly seeking validation through talking, others start seeking validation from you through their words. This creates a complete reversal of power dynamics. Instead of you working to be heard, others work to hear from you. Instead of you trying to impress them with your stories and opinions, they try to impress you with theirs. Your silence becomes a magnet that draws people toward you while they exhaust themselves trying to earn your response. This is particularly powerful in leadership situations. Leaders who talk constantly appear desperate and insecure. They seem to need constant reassurance that they're being heard and respected. But leaders who speak rarely and listen frequently appear confident and wise. They create an environment where others compete for their attention rather than the other way around. The psychological principle at work here is simple but profound. People value what they have to work for. When you make your words, your attention, and your approval scarce resources, they become valuable commodities that others will invest significant effort to obtain. Watch how this transforms your relationships. Friends will share more meaningful things with you because they know you're actually listening. Colleagues will seek your opinion because they know you don't give it carelessly. Even strangers will be more respectful because your quiet presence commands it automatically. But here's what makes this truly devastating as psychological warfare. While others are working harder and harder to get your attention, you're expending less and less energy. You're conserving your mental resources while they drain theirs. You're gaining influence while they lose it. You're becoming stronger while they become more desperate. The ancient Stoics called this the discipline of action, but it applies equally to the discipline of inaction. Sometimes the most powerful action you can take is no action at all. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can say is nothing at all. When you master these 7 principles, you transform from someone who reacts to every situation into someone who controls every situation. You stop being at the mercy of other people's words and start commanding respect through your strategic silence. You become the person others think about long after the conversation ends, wondering what you're thinking, what you know, and why you seem so unshakable. Remember, this isn't about becoming cold or disconnected from others. This is about becoming intentional with your communication and comfortable with your own presence. It's about understanding that in a world full of noise, silence is the ultimate power move. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it starts the moment you decide to stop filling every silence with unnecessary words. It begins when you catch yourself about to speak and ask a simple question instead. Do these words serve a purpose, or am I just making noise? Most people live their entire lives without ever asking this question. They speak automatically, reactively, desperately. They treat conversation like a reflex instead of a choice. But you're different now. You understand that every word you don't say is power you retain. Every silence you maintain is control you exercise. Let me tell you what happens when you begin implementing these principles. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your old programming tells you to fill the awkward pauses, to explain yourself, to prove your worth through constant chatter. Your ego screams that people will think you're boring or stupid if you don't entertain them with endless commentary. But push through this discomfort, it's temporary. What's permanent is the shift in how others perceive and treat you. Within days, you'll notice people leaning in closer when you do speak. You'll see them hanging on your words in ways they never did before. You'll watch as they start competing for your attention instead of you competing for theirs. The weak-minded will be frustrated by your silence. They'll try to provoke reactions from you, to pull you back into their chaotic world of meaningless noise. They need you to engage because your silence highlights their own insecurity. When you refuse to take their bait, when you remain calm and composed while they flail and react, you expose the difference between strength and weakness for everyone to see. But here's where it gets truly interesting. The people worth knowing, the ones with genuine strength and character, will recognize what you're doing. They'll respect your restraint. They'll appreciate your ability to listen without judgment and speak without desperation. These are the allies you want, the relationships that matter, the connections that will serve you throughout your life. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius faced this exact choice every day. Surrounded by senators, advisors, and citizens, all competing for his attention, all trying to influence his decisions with their words, he could have easily become lost in the noise. Instead, he developed what historians call his imperial presence. A quiet authority that commanded respect without demanding it. He understood that a leader who needs to constantly assert their authority has no real authority at all. True power is recognized, not announced. Genuine strength is felt, not proclaimed, when you carry yourself with quiet confidence. When you speak only when your words add value, when you're comfortable with silence while others squirm, you project the same kind of presence that made Marcus Aurelius one of history's most respected rulers. This principle extends far beyond casual conversations. In business negotiations, the person who speaks first usually accepts less favorable terms. In job interviews, the candidate who can sit comfortably with thoughtful pauses appears more competent than the one who fills every moment with nervous chatter. In relationships, the partner who doesn't need constant verbal affirmation projects confidence that draws their significant other closer. But perhaps most importantly, in moments of conflict, your silence becomes your shield and your sword simultaneously. When someone attacks you with words trying to provoke an emotional response, your quiet composure defeats them more thoroughly than any counter-argument could. They expect a fight. You give them nothing to fight against. They swing at empty air while you remain untouchable. This is psychological warfare at its most elegant. You're not being passive or weak. You're being strategically superior. You're choosing not to engage on their terms because you understand that the person who controls the terms controls the outcome. By refusing to react, you force them to either escalate to a point where they appear unhinged, or to retreat and reconsider their approach. Your silence says everything that needs to be said. It communicates strength, confidence, and control without uttering a single syllable. It forces others to fill the void with their own assumptions, and those assumptions almost always work in your favor. People project wisdom onto silence, competence onto restraint, and authority onto quiet confidence. The ancient Stoics had a term for this state of being. They called it ataraxia, unshakable tranquility. It's the ability to remain calm and composed regardless of external chaos. It's the power to observe without reacting, to listen without judging, to think before speaking, and to choose silence when silence serves you best. This tranquility isn't something you're born with. It's something you develop through practice and discipline. Every time you choose to pause before responding, you're building this muscle. Every time you resist the urge to fill an uncomfortable silence, you're strengthening your resolve. Every time you let others reveal themselves while you remain mysterious, you're gaining power. Start small. In your next conversation, instead of immediately responding when someone finishes speaking, count to 3. Feel the slight tension that builds in that moment. Notice how often the other person starts talking again, revealing more than they intended. Watch how your deliberate pause makes your eventual response carry more weight. Practice being the person who asks the last question instead of giving the last answer. Be the one who listens to understand rather than listening to reply. Become comfortable with moments of silence that others find unbearable. These small changes will compound into a complete transformation of how you move through the world. The most powerful people in history understood that silence isn't the absence of strength. It's the presence of control. It's not emptiness. It's potential energy waiting to be released at the perfect moment. When you master this principle, you join the ranks of those who lead through presence rather than pressure, who influence through mystery rather than manipulation. Your enemies will exhaust themselves trying to provoke you. Your competitors will waste energy on meaningless battles while you conserve yours for strategic victories. Those who matter will recognize your strength and gravitate toward it. Those who don't matter will eventually give up trying to disturb your peace and move on to easier targets. This is the path of the psychological warrior. Not someone who dominates through aggression, but someone who controls through composure. Not someone who wins through volume, but someone who succeeds through strategic silence. The battlefield is every conversation, every interaction, every moment when you must choose between reacting and responding. In each of these moments, you have the opportunity to demonstrate whether you're driven by your emotions or guided by your wisdom, whether you're controlled by external circumstances or in command of your internal state, whether you're a slave to the need for constant validation or a master of your own presence and power. The choice is yours to make in every single moment. And once you begin making the right choice consistently, something remarkable happens. You stop being reactive to the world around you and start being the force that shapes it. Your silence becomes a declaration of independence from the desperate need to be heard, understood, or validated by others. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think strategic silence means becoming a statue, emotionless and disconnected from the world. That's not what this is about at all. True psychological warfare through silence is active, not passive. It's intentional, not accidental. It's a conscious choice to engage with the world on your terms rather than being pulled into everyone else's chaos. When you implement these principles correctly, you become like a master chess player who thinks 5 moves ahead while their opponents struggle to understand the current position. You're operating on a completely different level of awareness and strategy. While they're caught up in the immediate drama of the moment, you're seeing the bigger picture and positioning yourself for long-term victory. This level of strategic thinking requires you to understand something fundamental about human nature. Most people are incredibly predictable. They react the same way to the same stimuli over and over again. They have emotional buttons that can be pushed with frightening consistency. They follow patterns of behavior that can be mapped and anticipated. But when silent, you remain and observe. You become the person who sees these patterns clearly. You recognize the triggers, the motivations, the fears, and the desires that drive everyone around you. This knowledge becomes your advantage in every interaction. You know what makes people tick while they remain mysteries to themselves. The ancient Stoics understood that knowledge without action is worthless, but they also understood that action without knowledge is dangerous. Your silence gives you the knowledge. Your strategic communication gives you the power to act on that knowledge when the time is right. You become someone who strikes with precision rather than someone who flails wildly hoping to hit something. Think about the difference between a predator and prey in the natural world. Prey animals are constantly making noise, constantly alert, constantly reacting to every stimulus around them. They live in a state of perpetual anxiety, jumping at shadows and exhausting themselves with unnecessary movement. Predators, on the other hand, move with purpose. They observe quietly, they wait patiently, and when they act, it's decisive and effective. This metaphor applies directly to human social dynamics. Most people move through the world like prey animals, constantly chattering, constantly seeking reassurance, constantly reacting to whatever captures their attention in the moment. They waste enormous amounts of energy on meaningless activities and wonder why they feel drained and powerless at the end of each day. When you master strategic silence, you move through the world like a predator. Not in the sense of wanting to harm others, but in the sense of being purposeful, patient, and precise in your actions. You conserve your energy for moments that matter. You speak when your words will have maximum impact. You remain quiet when silence serves your interests better. This transformation doesn't just change how others see you, it fundamentally changes how you see yourself. When you're no longer desperate for external validation through constant talking, when you're no longer afraid of awkward silences or uncomfortable pauses, when you're genuinely comfortable with your own presence and thoughts, you develop an unshakable sense of self-worth. This internal shift is perhaps the most powerful aspect of mastering strategic silence. You stop looking to others to define your value, your intelligence, or your worth as a human being. You become your own source of validation and approval. This makes you incredibly attractive to others because desperation repels while confidence attracts. People can sense when someone needs their approval, and it makes them uncomfortable. They feel the pressure of someone else's emotional neediness, and their natural instinct is to pull away. But when you genuinely don't need their approval, when you're complete and content within yourself, they feel safe around you. They can be themselves without worrying about managing your emotions or meeting your expectations. This creates a paradox that works entirely in your favor. The less you need people's approval, the more likely you are to receive it. The less desperate you are for attention, the more attention you naturally attract. The less you talk, the more people want to hear what you have to say. By needing less from others, you somehow end up receiving more from them. The Stoic philosophers called this the discipline of desire. It's the ability to want what you have rather than constantly craving what you don't have. When you apply this principle to communication and social interaction, you become someone who appreciates genuine connection without being desperate for it. You value meaningful conversation without feeling compelled to fill every moment with chatter. This discipline extends to how you handle criticism, praise, and conflict. When someone criticizes you, your silence allows you to consider whether their criticism has merit without becoming defensive. When someone praises you, your quiet acceptance shows that you're not starving for validation. When someone tries to draw you into conflict, your refusal to engage demonstrates that you're above petty battles. Each of these responses reinforces your reputation as someone who cannot be easily manipulated or controlled. People learn that you don't react predictably to their attempts to push your buttons. They discover that you operate by your own internal compass rather than being swayed by every wind of opinion or emotion that blows through your environment. This reputation becomes incredibly valuable over time. In professional settings, you become known as someone who can be trusted with sensitive information because you don't feel compelled to share everything you know. In personal relationships, you become someone others turn to for advice because they know you'll listen without judgment and speak only when you have something valuable to contribute. But perhaps most importantly, you become someone who commands respect without demanding it. Respect that's demanded is never genuine. It's compliance based on fear or obligation. But respect that's earned through consistent demonstration of character, wisdom, and self-control is genuine and lasting. This is the kind of respect that opens doors, creates opportunities, and builds lasting influence. The process of developing this level of self-mastery isn't always comfortable. There will be moments when your old habits try to reassert themselves. You'll feel the urge to fill uncomfortable silences, to defend yourself against unfair criticism, to prove your worth through impressive stories or clever observations. These urges are normal and expected. The key is recognizing them as old programming that no longer serves you. When you feel these urges arising, use them as opportunities to practice your new approach. Take a deep breath. Remind yourself of your commitment to strategic communication and choose silence over reaction. Each time you make this choice, you're rewiring your brain to respond differently to social pressures. You're building new neural pathways that support your transformation into someone who operates from strength rather than insecurity. The results of this transformation compound over time. What starts as a conscious effort to speak less and observe more eventually becomes your natural way of being. You develop an intuitive sense of when to speak and when to remain silent. You become skilled at reading the emotional undercurrents of any situation and responding in ways that serve your long-term interests rather than your immediate impulses. This level of social and emotional intelligence makes you incredibly effective in all areas of life. In business, you become someone who can navigate complex negotiations and office politics with ease. In relationships, you become someone who can provide genuine intimacy without the drama of constant communication conflicts. In leadership roles, you become someone who inspires loyalty through presence rather than trying to motivate through endless speeches. The ancient Stoics would recognize this transformation as the development of practical wisdom. It's not theoretical knowledge about how the world works, but actual skill in navigating the complexities of human nature and social dynamics. It's the ability to remain calm and strategic when others are emotional and reactive. It's the power to influence outcomes without appearing to try. This is the ultimate goal of psychological warfare through silence. Not to harm or manipulate others, but to protect yourself from their attempts to manipulate you, while positioning yourself for success in all your endeavors. You become someone who cannot be easily read, controlled, or defeated because you operate from a place of inner strength that most people never develop. The path forward from here is simple but not easy. It requires consistent practice, patient observation, and the willingness to feel uncomfortable while you develop new habits. But for those who commit to this transformation, the rewards are extraordinary. You gain access to a level of personal power that most people never even know exists. Your silence becomes your signature strength. Your restraint becomes your greatest weapon. Your ability to remain calm while others lose their composure becomes your competitive advantage in every area of life. This is the power that the ancient Stoics discovered and that you can master if you have the discipline to walk this path. There you have it, warrior. 7 weapons of psychological warfare that will transform how you move through this world. You now understand that silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate expression of strength. You've learned that in a world drowning in noise, the person who masters silence controls everything. These principles aren't theory, they're your new reality. Every conversation from this moment forward is an opportunity to practice this power. Every interaction is a chance to demonstrate that you operate on a different level than everyone else. You're no longer someone who reacts. You're someone who commands. Remember, this transformation starts with a single decision. The decision to stop filling every silence with unnecessary words. The decision to let others reveal themselves while you remain unshakable. The decision to become the person who speaks with devastating precision rather than desperate frequency. Your enemies will exhaust themselves trying to break your composure. Your competitors will waste energy on meaningless battles while you conserve yours for strategic victories. Those who matter will recognize your strength and respect it. Those who don't matter will eventually give up and move on to easier targets. This is your invitation to join the ranks of the truly powerful, not those who dominate through volume, but those who lead through presence. Not those who win through aggression, but those who succeed through strategic silence. If this message has awakened something in you, hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to discover their hidden power. Subscribe to join our army of psychological warriors who understand that real strength whispers while weakness shouts. Your silence is your strength. Your restraint is your weapon. Your composure is your crown. Now go forth and rule your world without saying a word.